Over the decades, the Arab music scene has evolved musically, lyrically, and visually. From the golden age of classical Arabic music to the pop craze of the 2000s, now a new wave of Gen Z artists are redefining what Arabic music sounds and looks like. Younger artists like Elyanna, Saint Levant, and many others are transforming the Arab music industry in bold new ways. Not only are they creating catchy beats and visually experimenting with more cinematic and symbolic music videos, but they are shifting perspectives. In this new wave of Arab performers, we're seeing the male gaze being challenged, more agency given to female performers, and a growing focus on political and social issues, from gender expectations to decolonization and cultural resistance. These young artists are also breaking cultural barriers by blending Eastern and Western musical styles, creating a multicultural and multilingual space that represents the Arab youth both in the region and in the diaspora. While some of these trends have existed in the past, they're now making a powerful comeback. The current wave of Arab music marks a dramatic shift from the music landscape of the early 2000s, with the Arab Spring serving as a turning point, signaling the decline of the Y2K pop era and the emergence of something new. In this video, we'll explore some of the major themes and trends among rising Arab artists today. But before we dive in, let's take a step back and look at what the Arab music industry looked like in the early 2000s. The Arab pop music industry in the 2000s is remembered as an iconic era when, quote, Arabic music reached its climax, with some of the most iconic and prominent stars of that decade being Haifa, Nancy Ajram, and Diab. And as an Arab Gen Z myself, I experienced this music era in my early childhood and lived it mostly through my mother, who would listen to Y2K bops on repeat. And although Gen Z did not experience the Y2K Arab pop era the same way older generations might have, a lot of these nostalgic hits hold a special place in the hearts and ears of Arab Gen Zers. So much so that the spirit of Y2K Arab pop lives on in the music of newer artists, many of whom reference icons and reimagine nostalgic hits from the early 2000s. But when you put the nostalgia and catchy beats aside and look deeper into the Y2K music industry, it's hard to miss the sexualization and objectification of women. The male gaze dominated a lot of the songs and music videos of female performers. While many songs conveyed emotional vulnerability, romantic longing, re-centered male desire, female artists like Haifa, Nancy Ajram, and Ruby were frequently portrayed through the male gaze, whether as sensual caretakers, seductive village girls, or objects of male fantasy. Many songs revolve around women's romantic devotion and emotional suffering. The love is often one-sided or painful, reinforcing narratives of female sacrifice. A less common but striking feature is the simultaneous infantilization and hypersexualization of female artists. For example, in El Wawa, Haifa uses childlike language as well as sexual imagery, performing in lingerie while cradling a child, which creates a dissonant portrayal that borders on fetishizing the maternal figure. Similarly, Nancy Ajram's Ya Banat celebrates girlhood in a playful, almost nursery rhyme-like style, reinforcing innocence even within a career built on sensual performance. Despite the hypersexualization and objectification of women, this era of music is still remembered as iconic. And an argument could be made that media from this time was progressive, especially in a region where, to this day, female visibility and sexuality are frequently policed. Their bold presence on screen, owning their image, performing desire, and reaching mass audiences challenged conservative gender norms. However, it is equally important to ask whether this hypersexualization negatively impacted how men in the region perceive and treat other women. As being exposed to media where portraying women in such an objectified manner further reinforces narratives that women are passive objects of desire for men. Having assessed some of the trends in Y2K Arab pop music, let's take a look at the music scene today. For starters, it's evident that the male gaze in songs and music videos among female performers have practically died out. Some of the top hits among younger Arab female artists are about confronting men in their songs, calling out their emotional inconsistency, mixed signals, and outdated gender expectations. Songs like Gannenni by Elyanna captures the emotional chaos of a toxic love. Yabn al-A portrays frustration with a man's games and indecisiveness, Weno by Dana Salah flips traditional gender roles, mocking the fantasy of the knight in shining armor. And most importantly, iconic song Masaitoro by Lamis Khan is about her being in full control of her relationship, warning her man to stay loyal to her and to not look at other women. Although music videos are not as central to the music industry as it was in the early 2000s, artists continue to produce cinematically and visually stunning music videos. The role and agency of women in music videos in the 2020s have changed significantly. For starters, the male gaze is practically non existent. Women are key figures in these music videos, showcasing their identity, their talent, their culture, their styles for themselves and their audience, rather than for a male character in the video. It's not that male characters have completely vanished from female artists' music videos, they're still there, but they are not central actors. They are background characters, musicians, or even backup dancers for the women who shine in the spotlights. Music videos often highlight sisterhood, dancing and having fun with their girlfriends. Even when female artists explore themes of sensuality and desire in their songs and music videos, it's on their own terms, often mixing sensuality with more artistic or darker elements. And while sex appeal will always be part of the media industry, what's shifting is whose gaze is being centered. The traditional male gaze, where women's sensuality is performed for male desire, is no longer the dominant visual lens. In fact, I would even go so far as to argue that not only has the male gaze been decentered in Arab pop, but more and more female artists are catering to the female gaze, focused on showcasing bold, dark, aesthetic, fashionable, detailed outfits rather than what is considered conventionally attractive for men. And I think the best example of this is Elyanna. Her style ranges from hyper-feminine fairy tale-like dresses to more edgier, darker streetwear looks. She pays attention to the small details in her style, like her nails, her accessories, henna tattoos, writing on her skin, and her accessories. And these are the small details that are noticed and appreciated by her female audience, thus appealing to the female gaze. And I would further argue that some male artists are slowly shifting in this direction of appealing to the female gaze as well, including more feminine aspects and pastel colors into their album art and music videos, challenging traditional masculinity. While I am critical of how women were hypersexualized and objectified in music videos of the early 2000s, I do want to clarify that there is nothing inherently wrong with the male gaze. After all, attraction, desire, and performance are natural elements of pop culture. What becomes problematic is when that's the only perspective that's being represented. When women are consistently shown only through a lens of male desire, it not only distorts how men perceive women, but also affects how women see themselves. That's where the damage happens, when the full range of female expression is reduced to one-dimensional tropes. And the shift we're seeing today isn't about erasing the male gaze, but about balancing it, introducing more diverse, more authentic representations of both femininity and masculinity. Even in the songs and music videos of male artists where women are represented as love interests or backup dancers, the women are not as hypersexualized. They're given more agency and autonomy, and are more than just objects of desire. They're people. Furthermore, songs by male artists now explore a wider range of themes, offering a more nuanced portrayal of masculinity and adding depth to third personas, moving beyond a singular focus on female desire. And the same goes for female artists, who are now not only singing about love and relationships, but are also claiming their political agency by singing about gender norms and representing their history, culture, and the political and colonial struggles they face as both Arab and Palestinian women. Which brings us to our next point: the prevalence of socio-political issues in 2020s Arab music. Singing about political themes such as the nation or Palestine is not new in the Arab music scene. It has been around since the decades of the golden age of Arabic music, but it saw a decline during the 2000s, where love and desire took over pop. However, political themes in music began to resurface during the Arab Spring, where artists were engaged in political protests, singing about freedom and the nation. Now that it has been over a decade since the Arab Spring, a new generation of Arab artists are addressing contemporary socio-political issues, such as colonialism and occupation, and gender dynamics. Since the beginning of Israel's military operations in Gaza in 2023, many Palestinian artists have come out with songs highlighting Palestinian culture, daily struggles under occupation, and the emotional weight of displacement and loss. And what I find interesting about these songs about Palestinian resistance is that they don't necessarily sound like your typical revolutionary song, which are typically very militant and nationalistic sounding, but they sound like catchy pop songs. Songs like Zayn's Harar Aqlak or Asli Ana reclaims Arab identity in the face of cultural erasure, while Elyanna's Olive Branch or Ghassan Zaytoun mourns the violence inflicted on Palestinians in Gaza. Artists like Saint Levant and MC Abdul reflect on exile and belonging, or tracks like Haifa and a Tesla, where Saint Levant blends satire, resistance, and pop culture references to critique occupation and reclaim narratives of space. Even when the songs are not political, music videos like Dana Salah Sweno center Palestinian culture through fashion. And despite the many examples of songs about Palestinian resistance, I would like to take a few moments to focus on Zayn's latest single, Harar Aqlak wa Asliana. The single was released in November 2024 and contains two separate tracks which follow one another. The first track, Harar Aqlak, or in English, Free Your Mind, is a poetic monologue that confronts the pressures faced by Arabs to abandon tradition in the name of modernity and challenges Western ideas of civilization and progress. The monologue is delivered in a tone that feels both intimate and reflective, and it seems that the singer is addressing her grandfather, recalling the stories he once told her about life before and after displacement and occupation. She reflects on how others ridiculed his traditional clothing, claiming that the time for the thobe or traditional dress has passed and should be replaced by suits. The monologue then shifts into a broader critique of the myth of progress, as she claims, quote, skyscrapers might reach the heavens, but they've led us to forget the ground beneath our feet. Instead, she insists that her past is not a burden to achieve modernity and civilization, but the foundation of civilization, with the final declaration of the monologue being, سجل أنا عربية وبعرف أصلي, or in English, for the record, I'm Arab and I know my roots. As the title of the track claims, she is freeing her mind from colonial modernity and the internalized shame that has been imposed on Arabness for centuries. The monologue is followed by the main track, Asli Ana, or My Origins in English, which is a powerful anthem of identity, resistance, and pride. She reiterates some of the themes in the monologue track while also asserting her Palestinian roots. In addition to Zayn's poetic and powerful lyrics, the music video is visually stunning, both aesthetically pleasing and cinematically powerful, as she reimagines and portrays various aspects of Palestinian life and culture, from the Yafa orange to Tatri's embroidery to Dabke. You can tell that a lot of effort was put into this video from the smaller details, like the key earrings representing hope for return, or her wedding dress embroidered with red beads, depicting the human loss as a result of decades of ethnic cleansing. And last but not least, the music and choreography pay tributes to Palestinian tradition by blending traditional sounds like dabke with more modern elements. And while many artists have created equally powerful masterpieces, the reason why I decided to do a deep dive into Zayn's song is because of how she draws a clear link between the erasure of Palestinian culture and broader Arab identity, as we all have a shared history of colonialism, imperialism, and cultural erasure through shame. In addition to the portrayal of Palestinian culture and resistance in the new Arab music scene, Arab artists are tackling gender-based issues, challenging societal expectations around femininity, marriage, and autonomy. Songs like Leila's Fadda's Tarat Tarat Tat offers a critique of the pressures placed on Egyptian women to conform, endure, and stay silent in toxic and abusive situations, to center men's comfort and conform to narrow ideals of femininity. Imtan Jawzak Yamma by Dam satirizes the relentless pressure on women and Arab societies to marry, celebrating singlehood and personal freedom instead. The lyrics mock common cultural questions towards women like when will you settle down, when will you get married, which is the title of the song. By blending satire and sarcasm, the song pushes back against expectations, asserting that finding yourself comes before finding a partner, and that singleness is not something that needs to be fixed. And while singing about gender-based issues is less common than some of the other trends we discussed in this video, it's something that I've been noticing in a lot of Arabic songs and something that I would personally like to see more of. But moving on to the last element that's transforming the Arab music industry, one of the most important trends we're seeing in newer Arab artists is their embrace of multiculturalism and multilingualism, breaking cultural barriers in the Arab music scene, both in the region and in the diaspora. For starters, many of today's artists are singing in Arabic, English, French, and occasionally Spanish, not just from one song to another, but seamlessly from one verse or one word to another. This reflects the bilingual and trilingual realities of Arab youth, with both English and French being commonly spoken amongst Arabs in the region and in the diaspora. Artists like Saint Levant, Bayou, and Lana Lubani, and many more are not only representing the languages spoken, but in switching languages from one verse to another, it is representative of how bilingual or multilingual people express themselves. And as someone who is an Arabic, English, and French speaker, there's definitely something very refreshing and powerful about hearing all my languages together in one song, representing my linguistic identity. Furthermore, by mixing Arabic with other languages, it shatters the outdated idea that exists that proper Arabic must be 100% accurate to the language, often excluding and discouraging Arabs in the diaspora from trying to learn or express themselves in Arabic. But these songs aren't any less Arab because they include other languages. They reflect the realities of a diverse and globalized Arab identity. By mixing more languages, they invite more people to connect with the culture rather than gatekeeping it. And in including subtitles in both languages, they make it more accessible to audiences which may prefer one language over the other. Newer artists are reflecting a generation that is no longer asking for permission to belong. They're claiming space, proudly Arab, and reshaping the cultural narrative on their own terms. For many listeners, this music is offering something they've never seen before themselves. Artists are blending traditional Arab aesthetics with Western styles, musically, visually, and choreographically. From dubki rhythms layered over hip hop beats to belly dancing being fused with contemporary movements, artists are creating a hybrid sound and visual identity that feels both rooted in Arab tradition and global. This fusion is not accidental. It mirrors the reality of these performers as third culture kids, fluent in the languages, styles, and sensibilities of both the East and West. Traditional instruments like the oud and tabla are now being paired with trap, synth pop, and R&B. And visually, music videos are increasingly cinematic, fashion-forward, and deeply symbolic, mixing keffiyeh and tatriz with more Western streetwear. And these languages and traditions don't clash, they coexist. Many artists are even reimagining Arab classical music by blending these timeless songs with modern beats and English lyrics. More and more Middle Eastern artists are collaborating with artists in North America and Europe, further globalizing their presence as Arab artists in the global music industry. And while bilingualism or trilingualism is not a new phenomenon in the music industry, the present today is growing significantly among Arab performers. Arab influences have always found a way into mainstream Western music, but for the first time, these elements are being reclaimed and represented by Arabs who are proud to share their culture, their struggles, and their heritage. Now that we've talked about how the Arab music industry is changing, it's about time that we ask why it's changing in this direction. One of the reasons that could explain the decreased sexualization of women in the music industry could be the shift in the role of TV networks like Melody and Rotana. One could imagine that the leadership of these Arab music networks were and probably still are predominantly male, which may have played a role in the sexualization of female artists and the prioritization of the male gaze in Y2K Arab pop music. However, today, thanks to social media, aspiring artists are no longer dependent on these network giants to create and stream their music to the masses. They can do so independently through social media and music platforms like Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, allowing artists to grow on their own, giving them the autonomy to express themselves the way they want to express themselves. Furthermore, Arab youth both in the region and abroad have become increasingly politically active since the Arab Spring through protests and social media. Movements like the university encampments in North America and Europe in 2024 exemplify this shift, and in my experience, it was a place where I was exposed to some of the artists I discussed in this video. Younger Arab generations are becoming increasingly aware of the effects of Western imperialism in their region and culture, empowering many to reclaim their identities, breaking the cycle of shame historically associated with being Arab. And as a result, the Arab music scene is changing. It's evolving into something new, representative of a culturally diverse, politically active, and evolving youth. An Arab youth experimenting with new ways to express their identities, particularly those in the diaspora who have been struggling to find their identities, torn between traditional Arab values and Western norms of their adopting country. And the representation of these struggles that Arab immigrant families face is something that is appearing more and more in pop culture, with more and more shows and content creators portraying the struggles of being torn between two identities, being underrepresented and misunderstood. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to not miss out on any new video commentaries on Arab pop culture. If you guys are interested in discovering any of the songs or artists I mentioned in this video, I've attached both a Spotify and YouTube playlist in the description below. And if you made it this far to the video, please let me know in the comments what you guys think about the emerging trends in today's Arab music scene, or what some of your favorite songs or artists are. And before ending this video, I would like to mention that all the opinions I presented in this video are representative of my personal opinion, which is shaped by my age, my gender, my experience as a third culture kid, and my music taste. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope to see you all in my next video.